We left off with arrays, and one thing we can do with arrays that you'll often do with them is to loop through them and grab the elements out of the array. So now we're going to move into looping. So I'm just going to create an area here that demarcates the loop code from what we were doing with arrays. So I'll just do right here, loops. And first thing is going to be getting some user input. So we're going to use this while we're creating our loops. So I'm going to send the user some instructions, which are going to be, please enter a value between, let's do 1 and 7. Whoops, 1 and 7. And we're going to use that. So we need to get my semicolon. We're going to capture this and we're going to make some use of it. So I'm just going to put that into input. So we're going to go back with our conditional, which was from here, and I can just copy this code and we're going to put it right here. And what we're going to do is between 1 and 4. So let's see the issue with this. Unable to resolve input identifier. Okay, I'm going to wait until we actually do some compilation and we can see what's going on with that. So the next thing is we're going to initialize a counter, and this is going to work like an index for us. So we are going to see out, and in here we're going to have a while loop. So we've got a loop in a loop. And for the while loop, we can do while count does not equal input, and just create a body for this with our braces. And we're going to do cout is count, and cout we're just going to do a new line, and then we're going to increment our count. So this plus plus is just adding 1 to it. So as we go through this while loop, this body here, our count starts off with 0, and then we plus it by 1, which is going to give it the value of 1. We plus it again on the next iteration. That's going to be 2, and so on. So we just keep going through it. And as long as we're not equal to input, we're going to keep looping. So we're going to see what this looks like in a little bit. I want to go ahead and finish building out what we're doing inside of this conditional first. So we're going to have this loop here, which is going to be called a for loop. And inside the for loop, we are going to create this structure. So for, and we need to set its iterator, which is going to be starting off at 0 because we're 0 index based. And we're going to go to some point, which is going to be to input whatever that number is. So that's how far we're going to go. Now, unlike the while loop where we're doing this count plus plus, so we had to create this variable right here, initialize it, then we have to manually do the increment. That is actually built into the for loop structure. So I'm using this I variable. You can see we initialize it. We have the plus plus. So everything's very concise with the for loop. And then what we're going to do is cout I and cout a new line like this. Okay, so we are still inside of our for loop. What I'm going to do now is create an else here, create a body for the else. So this is our default case, and I'm going to just say you are providing an invalid index and save. So let's go ahead and run this now and see what kind of input we get. So this is going to be for the first part of what we have for our input, and this is not where we're at with our loops yet. We have that 1 through 7, so I'm just going to do a 3, and here we are with our 1 through 7, and probably just want to make a semi or a colon there. So the value I'm going to do is 3. Enter, and you can see our loops. So here's our while loop, and notice the values that they're printing out are the same because they're both starting at an index of 0, and they're basically just iterating these I values. So for the for loop, if we go back and look at our array, we have this data array. And then down here, we are, let's see, the for loop, we're going from 0 to this input. And what we can actually do is on a new line, C out, we have, let's say, data I, and we're going to just do some comment here, array item, like this. And we're going to put a new line on it, save, and let's go ahead, as long as we don't go out of our bounds. So if I comment this out, and we can do, let's say, something like this, and we have our data I, and we're going to do a new line here, and just close this off and realign our code, save, and run. So let's go and look, and let's see here. Actually, we are going to comment out some of this other code that every time we have to run it, we've got to stop. So let's see here. We want this part, and we can just comment out this down to here. So this comment is actually just doing this block of code, which is we're using a /* instead of a //, and that gets us down to here. So I open it, and then I do */ to close it. And then we have some other input that we're getting up here. So let's see, we have this one here. And what we can do is start with operators, comment it out all the way down to arrays, because we want that array to be valid. So let's save, and I'm going to build, make sure I haven't messed anything up. Looks like there's a place we'll need to uncomment. So let's see here. So input is probably being missed. And if I go and look, so right here, so the input is defined right there, and then down here we're using it again. So let's see here. I think it is defined a little further up right there. So we're going to want this one, and what I can do is take it and put it outside of the comment block like that. And if I build, now everything is okay because input is in scope. Scope just means that we have defined that variable above somewhere that we can see it. So before, when we tried to use input, we got that build failure because input didn't exist, but we're still trying to make use of it right here. So now it's defined further up in our file, and we can make use of it. So let's run this and see now if we get fewer areas that we actually have to do any kind of input. And let's see. And if I scroll down, I think everything is okay. So I'm going to let this continue on, and we're basically right here. So I'm going to input a value of 3, and there's our for loop. And you can see here our output that we're getting. So let's scroll down and look at that right here. No, right here actually. So our data I is, we're displaying the counter, and then we're displaying the data I. So that's why we're kind of getting 2. But notice we get a 0, and then we start getting in sync with whatever count is. Basically, it's because of the values coming out of the array. Now, if I go and change the array values so they're not so close, so I can do something like this and save. Let's run that and just let that continue out. So let's go back with our 3. And there we go. Now you can clearly see the values coming out of the array. Let's go back down to where we were putting this together, and we broke everything out into its own lines right here. So let's go ahead and use our concatenation of strings now, and I'm just going to remove this comment, and I need to add my arrows here. So we should be able to see this a little bit clearer now. I'm going to go ahead and run and let that continue on. Do 3 again, and so there we are. So that looks better than what we had before, but just another way to do it if you want to have everything broken out on its own line like that. So that is a look at looping inside of C++. So what we're going to do next is look at structs.